What's up, Colliders? Welcome back to another episode here of Worlds Collide. I'm the kid JW. That's Miss Diva Talks.
What's up, y'all?
And this video is coming from the Infographics network here on YouTube. Insane conspiracy theories that turned out to be true. I see Wayfair in the background, so I'm kind of curious on this one, actually.
Oh, we know what that conspiracy is. I literally just saw somebody talking about it on TikTok.
Really?
Yeah, you remember the items that were in people's names that were being sold in the thousands? They were like storage bins and stuff like that. Stuff that shouldn't cost the price that we were seeing.
No, I never heard that.
Okay.
All right.
I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I definitely like a good conspiracy theory.
Thanks to the mass sharing allowed by social media sites, we're currently living in the golden era of conspiracy theory. The truth might be out there, but there are millions of lies out there too. We're sorry to burst your bubble, folks, but Michael Jackson, Elvis, and Tupac are all definitely dead. Wayfair Furniture is not involved in human trafficking, and we'd advise you to leave any lizard people theories at the door. But that doesn't mean every crazy conspiracy is false. In fact, some of the ones that turned out to be true are often the craziest of all. First, we'll open with a classic, MK Ultra, the CIA's secret mind control plot. When LSD, a hallucinogenic chemical compound, became a popular drug in the mid-20th century, hippies were using it to touch the face of God at music festivals, and the CIA, who, well, spoilers will come up a lot in this video, were trying to weaponize it. The concept of the CIA developing a secret mind control program sounds like something you might hear being discussed extensively at your local psych ward. But believe it or not, this really did happen during the covert MK Ultra project. They tricked heroin addicts into taking LSD doses and recruited unsuspecting men at fake brothels, followed by electroshock and hypnotism experiments. As far as we're aware, no useful results ever came out of the project, despite the experiments destroying the lives of many of their subjects. When a Freedom of Information Act request spilled the beans on this project in 1977, it gave the American public yet another reason in an already turbulent decade to distrust the government. But the U.S. government isn't the only one who was up to some crazy conspiracy-inspiring science experiments. This might seem like a lowbrow joke, but in the 1960s, the Canadian government funded the creation of a real-life gaydar. Before y'all start snickering like high schoolers, you should know that despite seeming pretty silly on the surface, this had horrible consequences for the lives of around 400 people. Frank Robert Wake, a professor at Canada's Carleton University, designed the machine to measure pupil dilation in response to images of a homosexual nature. This incredibly unscientific device was then tested on a huge number of government employees, 400 of whom were fired after testing positive for gay. The cruelest insult on top of all this financial injury, the real-life gaydar was internally nicknamed the Fruit Machine, a nod toward a common homophobic phrase at the time. Stay classy, Canada. Let's hop away from North America and over to North Korea, one of the weirdest countries in the world.
So that's funny because somebody I know.
Gosh, okay.
Almost bested my whole family right there. No, so somebody I know used to always show like, oh yeah, my gaydar went off. You know, talking about people of that. Love y'all. Love y'all. Love y'all. But I always felt, you know, growing up in the 90s and early 2000s, we didn't think that was nothing wrong. Like, oh yeah, I thought that was normal. But now it's like, wow. That's really insulting to somebody. So, wow, that's. I thought that was just a thing that, you know, they said like, oh, the tech, you know, they're like, oh, that show like, you know, they're saying like, oh, they got a little sugar in their tank or whatever. I thought that was just normal, but I didn't think that it was like, oh, it was really a thing. Wow. Again, love y'all. Love y'all.
So clueless.
World. There are very few countries that are actively friendly with the DPRK, but one country that has a particularly strained relationship with them is Japan. So much so that there was a long-running conspiracy theory of the North Korean government disappearing Japanese citizens. And as you probably guessed from the title of this video, this conspiracy theory turned out to be completely true. In 2002, the now deceased former Supreme Leader Kim Jong-il straight up admitted that the country had kidnapped at least 13 Japanese citizens. To their credit, they did give 5 of them back after this. The location of the other 8 is still an open question. Okay, back to the United States now. Though this conspiracy theory was performed against the U.S. government rather than by it. the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln by John Wilkes Booth. Even our framing there suggests that John Wilkes Booth was a lone wolf triggerman, a deranged racist out-of-work actor willing to bet his life to take down Honest Abe. Naturally, conspiracies popped up that Booth wasn't acting alone. And yep, the conspiracy turned out to be true. Booth worked with at least 9 other Confederate co-conspirators, most of whom were would-be assassins themselves. These included George Astaroth, who tried and failed to assassinate Vice President Andrew Johnson, Lewis Powell, who tried and failed to assassinate Secretary of State William Seward, and Mary Surratt, who would become the first woman ever to be hanged by the United States government. Not exactly a successful bunch. From a defied American leader to a defied Tibetan leader, you might have heard a number of conspiracy theories about the Dalai Lama, the spiritual figurehead of Tibet. Given that the Dalai Lama is opposed to Chinese expansion, many have accused the United States of funding the Dalai Lama as a form of proxy opposition. And they are right. Reports extrapolated from U.S. intelligence accounts have shown the CIA has given His Holiness a $180,000 a year stipend for at least several years since 1960 as part of a wider project to fund the Tibetan exile movement during the Cold War. Let's take a little break from sinister dealings performed by governments and look at some of the shady little things that private companies have been up to. It's generally accepted that...
It's funny, and I don't want to get into conspiracies on the CIA, but it's funny how this... But, I don't want to get kidnapped in a black van, but it's funny how the CIA is always involved in like every single thing that under the radar.
Of course they are.
It's always under the radar, like David did Cuba, notably. You know, they do it, and there's a lot of radio stations they do overseas that they, you know, they donate to, they pay overseas, just spew our type of ideology. Ideology is what I was looking for, to those countries to help get them away from their ideologies. So it's crazy. And I can go on and list, but let's go beyond my network. Continue.
That sugar isn't exactly great for you. But if the sugar industry had their way, you wouldn't know that. In 1967, the Sugar Research Foundation, a lobbying organization funded by companies that deal heavily in sugar products, oversaw a study that downplayed the links between sugar consumption and cardiac diseases. But corporate sugar conspiracies like this aren't a thing of the distant past. The Coca-Cola Company paid millions to commission a study muddying the link between sugary sodas and obesity back in 2015. But all of that seems like small potatoes compared to a small group of companies getting together and planning a fascist takeover of the United States of America. It feels almost like a textbook premise of a conspiracy thriller, but it actually occurred in 1933 with the business plot. Senator Prescott Bush, grandfather of George W. Bush, teamed up with business leaders from Chase Bank, Goodyear, Standard Oil, GM, and the DuPont family with the goal of funding a military coup to take down FDR and install a fascist dictatorship. The one flaw in their evil plan was reaching out to Marine Corps Major General Smedley Butler to lead the military part of the military coup, despite the fact that he was a vocal FDR supporter. He blew the whistle and smothered the plan before it even took off. Despite being involved in literally treasonous conspiracy, none of the business plotters were ever punished. We can at least thank Smedley Butler for nipping the fascist takeover plan in the bud. But the fact that the son and grandson of Prescott Bush would become the presidents of the country he tried to overthrow really just feels like a sick joke.
So you mean to tell me that Chase was a part of the whole process to overturn?
Yeah, was a part of something.
You said what?
Nothing.
No, what you said?
They always a part of something.
Yeah. It's crazy, like, wow. Well, of course, money talks. BS walks. So,
Well.
yeah, there's that. Chase has had their hand in every single thing, including the Titanic. So there's that.
Unbelievable.
That's crazy. Like, we're like,
That
wow.
is literally
That is
crazy.
Like, wow. I like that.
But somehow a diabolical fascist takeover is nowhere near the most horrifying and disgusting corporate conspiracy in this video. A real contender for that would be the Bayer Pharmaceutical Company, and one of their very sinister-sounding subsidiaries, Cutter Biological. In the 1980s, Cutter Biological moved into the business of selling blood clotting medicine to hemophiliacs, manufactured from the blood of non-hemophiliacs. But for the medicine they were selling to Latin America and Asia, they didn't properly screen their donors. The result? Cutter Biological sold products that infected 20,000 patients with HIV, a travesty that they then spent years trying to cover up. What could possibly be worse than infecting 20,000 hemophiliacs with HIV? probably being complicit in a cover-up that could spark the end of the world. While climate change has become a hot-button topic recently, due to the fact that we are currently living through its effects, the people behind ExxonMobil Fuel Company knew about it as early as the 1970s due to climate research they funded at the time, then spent millions suppressing. Their lobbying has muddied the waters and delayed action on climate change because it would affect their bottom line, putting millions, if not billions, of lives at risk in the process. Now that we've exposed...
That just goes to show you the lengths, the money that they will spend just to keep the truth from being told.
And mind you, it's the money they paid to get the study done, and it was like, wait, what? It can't happen? Yeah. Pay more money to not have this come out.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
what? You knew about this in the 70s, and you said, screw it, and now we have to deal with the outcome of it. It's like, wow.
The shadowy horrors of the corporate world, let's return to the crazy governmental conspiracies for the rest of the video. And believe it or not, these are literally all conspiracies that the United States government is responsible for. USA! USA! We're number one, baby. That includes being number one to hire ex-Nazi scientists right after the conclusion of World War II. Operation Paperclip was created as an effort to give the U.S. a technological and scientific edge during the Cold War, even if it meant making a deal with the devil. Though that's not entirely accurate, it was more like taking a deal with 1,500 devils, all of which were given full clemency, having their slates wiped clean, with new and Nazi-free backstories written for them by the Joint Intelligence Objectives Agency. These included the diabolical Nazi scientists Werner von Braun, Hubertus Struckhold, and Arthur Rudolph. Some truly monstrous people were able to get away with their crimes scot-free, but hey, at least we got the V-2 rocket and the moon landing out of it. Let's not move away from evil science just yet, either. One of the most infamous stories of unethical medical testing is the Tuskegee syphilis experiment. It was a conspiracy between the U.S. Public Health Service and the Tuskegee Institute to turn around 400 black men into unknowing guinea pigs for syphilis studies, all while lying to them that they were in fact being treated for their painful and debilitating conditions. The study was kept under wraps for 40 years before the shameful exploitation of these men was revealed for all to see. In 1974, there was a $10 million payout to the surviving victims of the program, but nothing could ever give them back the years wasted in unnecessary suffering. But even death can't necessarily save you from being involved in a horrific scientific...
Man.
Hey, we're number one in this. We like to be number one. Remember, we like to be number one. We just don't have morals when it comes to good side of it.
Clearly.
Yeah, we don't have good morals on this one.
If a conspiracy. As a general rule, if a government project has a strangely innocent-sounding name, it's probably trying to hide the fact that it's enough to give you nightmares.
Yeah.
This was definitely the case with Project Sunshine, a 1950s study on the effects of radiation on human bodies. It goes without saying this is extremely important to research, but it doesn't mean that it was conducted ethically. In order to have varied collection of the data, the scientists involved in the project had their personnel steal parts of corpses like Victorian grave robbers, including those of children and even infants. This would be macabre but ultimately ethical if the families had consented to donate their relatives' bodies to science. But when these tests were performed, the families had no idea. Burke and Hare would be proud that their legacy lives on. Racially motivated testing and grave robbing are one kind of horrible, but indiscriminately releasing a bioweapon on an entire area is another. If you enjoy spending time near large bodies of water, the name Operation Sea Spray might evoke pleasant and relaxing vibes. Nothing at all like the U.S. Navy releasing 2 different types of dangerous and infectious bacteria from a boat on the San Francisco Bay in 1950, infecting 11 different people with...
So I'm still supposed to believe that chemtrails aren't a real thing. Okay. All right. Okay. All right.
an aggressive urinary...
Oh, okay.
Hold on. I want to disagree with you, but I also want to agree with you. Half of me wants to say, because I know how planes operate when they fly. Exhaust.
Please.
But the other side of me was like, I don't even know if I'm putting my underwear on correctly anymore in this day and age. So, who knows?
Urinary tract infection that killed one of them. Why? Because they wanted to know how the city's population would react to the release of that kind of pathogen. The details were all kept under wraps until being revealed to the world almost
You know, in this case, I feel like there could have been a way less messier way. You could have like a survey. Hey, how would you feel if this happened in your city? You could have got the same response versus, I don't know, doing it because there's a lot of paperwork to do.
decades later in 1977. But the U.S. government wasn't quite done playing God just yet. During the Vietnam War, the CIA engaged in a secret project called
Let's see what they say.
Operation Sober Pop.
No, I'm not supposed to. I'm not. Chemtrails is not a real thing, right?
Let's just see.
During the Vietnam War, the CIA engaged in a secret project called Operation Sober Popeye. This was a plot to control the very weather in Vietnam and use it as a weapon in the war against the Viet Cong. For years, the CIA attempted to seed rain clouds in Vietnam that would extend the country's natural monsoon season, bogging down their forest-dwelling commando enemies. Thankfully, they didn't fully succeed, and in 1978, military applications of weather-manipulating technology was classified as a war crime. The CIA, at least theoretically, would be forced to take their combat weather aspirations off the table. How about another CIA weapon that sounded like an insane conspiracy theory?
It's a war crime. Which basically means for other countries to do it, it's frowned upon. But because we decide what's a war crime and what's not a war crime, have at it.
Before being revealed to be terrifyingly real. Every year, 805,000 Americans suffer from heart attacks, many of them fatal. It's a terrible consequence of the cardiac illness epidemic in the country. But could it also be the result of elite CIA assassins taking out targets? And how would a CIA assassin induce a heart attack without a trace? A specifically designed heart attack gun, of course, one that fires a frozen dart carrying deadly blowfish poison, which then melts after transfer, inducing a heart attack and leaving a small red dot on the body as the only evidence of foul play. While this might seem like a bizarre fantasy cooked up by someone who watched a few too many James Bond movies, Senator Frank Church revealed the very real heart attack pistol during a public hearing in Congress about some of the seedier activities of the CIA. So let's give the CIA a bit of a break before Infographics Show HQ undergoes a mysterious series of simultaneous heart attacks and look at the shady conspiratorial antics of the U.S.'s domestic intelligence agency, the FBI. There are plenty of conspiracy theories about celebrities. Ironically, they normally consist of theories that a dead celebrity is actually alive, like Tupac, or that a living celebrity is actually dead, like Paul McCartney. But we're interested in a different Beatle today, the band's frontman John Lennon. It was theorized for years that the FBI had it in for Lennon, and those theories are actually completely correct. The FBI didn't take kindly to Lennon's anti-war songs, so rather than giving peace a chance, they decided to take a peek at Lennon's dirty laundry in the hopes of finding something juicy as a basis to blackmail or even deport him. But Lennon is hardly the only celebrity who's had the FBI on their back. Singer Aretha Franklin was frequently stalked and hassled by the FBI for her leftist political stances. The Bureau kept background check files on a shocking number of famous people, including Steve Jobs, Whitney Houston, Helen Keller, Marilyn Monroe, Walt Disney.
Makes you wonder if this one really went away on its own power. I don't want to sound like an asshole on this one, but what could she have done? 'Cause
You know, though, I've been seeing conspiracies talk about her on TikTok.
she's, as far as I remember, she's blind.
Yeah, and that's what everybody was
So
talking
it's like,
about.
what could she? And this is not being an asshole. I'm not trying to sound like an asshole. What could she have done to make it seem like she's on their watch list?
Lie. I don't know.
Yeah, Walt Disney. That's a whole other conspiracy topic right there on its own. So I can see why on that one. But number one on the list makes you wonder because if anything seems like a cult, it's that place right there.
You got that right.
Disney, Charlie Chaplin, Rock Hudson, Truman Capote, and even sitcom superstar Lucille Ball. But their stalking of celebrities is nothing compared to how they destroyed American activist groups under J. Edgar Hoover's COINTELPRO plan, where they engaged in everything from blackmail to gaslighting to even straight-up assassination, taking on everything from unions to hippie peace groups to the Black Panther movement. By the time COINTELPRO was through, activism in the United States was a shadow of its former self. Okay, we have one more CIA story for you because these guys create conspiracies like Willy Wonka makes chocolate. Anyone who watches a lot of news might start to get the sense that there's some spin going on, that the seemingly impartial reporting of information might actually be a Trojan horse for an agenda. While these days that agenda comes from the various corporations that all own major news stations, for several decades in the mid-20th century, it was coming from the CIA, courtesy of an initiative known as Operation Mockingbird. Frank Wisner, head of the CIA's Office of Special Projects, spearheaded a far-reaching media influence campaign that gave him control of key figures from the New York Times, CBS, and members of the Washington Press Corps. At the height of the program, 3,000 CIA employees were tasked with maintaining Wisner's complex propaganda machine, as they spied on journalists who worked with whistleblowers and paid other journalists to disseminate false information that served the CIA's narrative. It was a conspiracy theorist's dream and nightmare come true. Now check out what actually are the Illuminati.
So, that last one. Like me, I watch a lot of news, mainly because, one, I like to stay informed, at least for the most part. Two, I like to see what the weather and traffic's going to be. Three, I like about sports. But you can, when you see like the main news networks, I'm not talking about your 247s. When you look at your Fox and CNN and MSNBC, we all know Fox tends to lean towards the Republicans. We know CNN tends to lean towards more the Democrats. MSNBC tends to kind of lean both ways, depending how the ratings go. So it's like, when you look at it, it's like, yeah, all the main news on the national side it all depends on, you got to sort through all the noise to see what the actual truth is. And as they say, any governmental project that's like, oh, hey, so we're going to have Project Summertime. What are you doing? So it's like a lot of stuff, you see, it's like, yeah, it's crazy. And especially in this video, it's crazy that a lot of this actually turned out to be true by none other than the CIA.
Go USA.
Woo! But nah, the whole other thing was getting us brainwashed to say the Pledge of Allegiance when we was growing up in school.
Wait, what?
Singing the Pledge of Allegiance in school.
Oh,
School.
yeah.
Every morning, like by 8:15, stand up.
And now you see that kind of stuff in like movies of kids doing the same. I can't remember what movie it was that I was watching, but it was basically showing these Russian kids doing what we were doing in elementary school.
And it's crazy because a lot of the communist countries, that's how. I'm not gonna say that's how, because again, I don't know how they operate, because their stuff is censored heavily. But that's how they always so like, oh hey, they have their ways of I don't want to say worshiping, their leaders and whatnot. So it's like in our end, it's like, wow.
That's exactly what it is.
So in our case, it's like, oh, we're gonna at the young age, we're gonna force you to, boom, loyalty to your country at all costs. Boom, this is how it is. Because we was always taught, your country's good. Do what you can. What was the quote from one of the presidents?
Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. The hell.
And that was always what we were taught in elementary school. It's like, oh, and like I said, I remember growing up as a kid and looking like, oh, the country's good. I want to do this for my country. Yeah. Now it's like, they're quick to sell me off. They're quick to let me hang and dry in the wood in the desert. So I'm straight.
That went dark fast.
Yeah.
Though it is true.
Had my moments. But yes, this video was wild. You wanna take us on out before they shut us down?
As always, Colliders, if you enjoyed this reaction, go ahead and hit the like button. Share with someone who you think would like it as well. If you want to check out this YouTuber's YouTube channel and all of their other videos, probably going to put them on rotation as well. That depends if this does well. But the links to their channel and this video will be in the description below, along with where you can check out me and Such JW on our own YouTube channels.
Exactly, y'all.
Bye, y'all.
Later.